All right. All set? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this Region 12 Board of Education meeting, February 6, 2017. Thank you all for coming. Rebecca, would you take attendance, please?
Anthony Amato. Valerie Anderson.
Valerie will not be here tonight.
Alan Brown. Gregory Cava. Rebecca Devine, I'm here. Michelle Gora. James Hirschfield.
Here.
Stephanie Kolnick. Jennifer Pody. Lisa Rausch. Michael Sinatra. Peter Tagley.
All right, so as of right now, Anthony, Valerie, and Greg are absent, so we have a quorum. All right, item 2, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. We do have a 3-minute time limit on folks. I want to remind folks that we did have the public forum several weeks ago in which we heard from everybody at length, but you're free to, anyone is free to speak. You just have to state your name and what town you're from, and you have to speak at the lectern. Is there anybody who'd like to address the board? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, and thank you. I'm Kathy Bronson from Roxbury, and I was the first graduating class out of this school. I have 2 children that came through the school system, and over the past 36 years in Roxbury, we've employed over 100 people at our Maple Bank farm. And we are a very diversified farm, offering very unique and varied experiences for all of our employees. Several of our employees have gone on to become farmers or are involved in farming ventures, but mainly I'm here to speak about all the rest of those that were over, up to over 100 people, because they went on to many other kinds of fields. Teachers, actress, care provider, finance, working in a lawyer's office, retail store manager, and one now is almost finished her studies to be a doctor, and a few, and actually really several, they're self-employed, and many have come back to us and told us how that their hands-on experience in our varied kind of diversified farm have been applied to the different occupations that they've chosen. I strongly support the Shepaug being a part of the Ag STEM program. There are many more reasons than what I'm going to be able to talk about. Please, please support the forward movement of this very, very valued program. I believe that the hands-on experience so often is what gets carried on in ways that I've heard identified and want you to remember to tap into. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, sir.
John Bonaiuto from Washington. Research by the I'm going to address agenda item 9.1. Research by the naysayers and obstructionists has revealed that every one of your numerous enrollment forecasts over the past 18 months has been riddled with errors. Your projections have contained wildly unrealistic assumptions, incorrect data, and even mathematical mistakes. This resulted in your revision of the enrollment numbers downward from the original predicted student population of 240. In reality, the correct data leads to a population of only 65 out-of-district students. This is a far cry from your current 119 out-of-district. Why do I bring these facts to your attention? In case you haven't heard, the Office of Policy and Management Secretary Ben Barnes and the Department of Administrative Services Commissioner Melody Curry both seriously doubt the validation of your 139 student enrollment forecast. and have a real problem with the state financing a project that may only serve less than 90 students, with a construction cost incurred by the state of approximately $260,000 per student. On January 25th of this year, the Department of Administrative Services Commissioner Curry recommended to the State Construction Priority List Review Committee that the Region 12 ASTE project be removed from the priority list because she could not substantiate the numbers. I quote her, "I recommend removal to allow us to more fully explore the possibility of regional alternatives." The state legislature's Education Committee Chairman, Andrew Fleischman, has also suggested that he was looking into cutting more than just these two projects, that being the Greenwich New Lebanon School and Region 12's Ag STEM, in order to stay below the bond ceiling. Again, both of these projects were earmarked by Ben Barnes, who recommended a more careful review of the agri-science project, and Melody Curry, who recommended removal from the priority list. Thankfully, the commissioners and legislators of our state are still questioning your enrollment projections because of the dire state budgetary crisis that exists. Approval of a state construction grant for this project is simply not likely. In the fall of 2015, prior to the referendum, most of you insisted that the money from the state was already appropriated and was there waiting for us if we simply passed the referendum. Needless to say, most of the statements you made turned out to be blatantly false. For 18 months now, this Board of Ed and Superintendent have continued to spend over $500,000 as if the money had already been appropriated, and your decision tonight could potentially waste hundreds of thousands of dollars more. It defies logic as to why the members of the Board of Ed cannot wait a few months to be positively certain as to what the state legislature and the governor will do. Beliefs can't change facts. Facts, however, could change our beliefs.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Last call? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Samantha Steinis from Roxbury. 2 weeks ago, I was here with my son, who's one of the many children who will be affected drastically by this vote tonight. I ask that you think of the region's children and of our community and what we need to remain a community that people want to live in. AgSTEM has already attracted families to our community, and I believe will continue to do so. We need to move forward with AgSTEM to be on the priority list at the state level. Having AgSTEM here will ensure that the most precious members of our community in our region will have a variety of courses, challenging curriculum, and many extracurriculars experiences for years to come. A concern amongst those against AgSTEM is that the program may fail. Perhaps they're not aware that there are 19 ASTE schools across the state that have thrived throughout the years. No ASTE school has had a program that has failed. Shepaug can actively recruit students, which is something that Nanuwag does not currently do, yet they still turn away dozens of students every year. I'm one of a large group of community members who support this. We have faith in you and the hard work that you have done. We want you to move forward with this project. Spend the money. Our children are worth it. Our community is worth it. Those who support this project are committed to organizing and to continually inform the state legislature, the DAS, the OPM, the Education Committee, Appropriations Committee, and the governor that support for this project remains at the impressive level that it did at the referendum. Please vote yes and show the community that the 1,663 votes in favor of AgSTEM mattered. Your yes vote will have a positive effect on our school and on our community, and most importantly, on our children.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir?
Good evening. I'm Neil Kennedy from Roxbury. I just want to just state the obvious. The people voted, and they want to move forward with a strong yes voice, and they expect you to do the same. I'd like you to consider everybody's vote and carry this out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir?
Good evening. My name is Tim Laughlin. I'm a Washington resident. I'd first like to thank you all for continuing an important discussion about the future of our regional school system. This is one of countless public forums where we've all come to talk about this. I think that it's important for us to set a baseline of fact, one that the board and the superintendent and the school administration, in my view, have done an overwhelming job at ensuring a significant amount of public input, looking at all opinions, refining a plan to get to the best number that is possible. And I think the premise of the initial referendum was one based on projections, and projections change over time with refinement. I think the board and the administration have done an excellent job at continually refining the plan for AgSTEM. But I think that we have to approach this from some historical basis. What we know today is that population and students are continually declining. And then when we look at those projections out, there aren't a lot of young families, there aren't a lot of young children. And unless we do something to change that, our school system is eventually going to be in peril. I know that sounds somewhat dire, but it's the truth. Populations in our elementary schools are shrinking. In some cases, we have classrooms that have 4 and 6 students, and we need to find a way to increase enrollment. And so I think that when we look at all the alternatives that have been discussed, AgSTEM, in my view, and the view of many other people who support it, is the only one that brings in students, that also provides a unique opportunity for our local economy to grow and attracts young families like myself. End of the day, my wife and I bought a house, the junkiest one on the block. We fixed it up, got married, we had a kid. We, in our view, did everything that we should have to be part of a community. And the assumption was that we would have a strong and unique school system to support our kid, that we wouldn't have to worry about when he's, playing baseball or hockey, that there wouldn't be enough kids to form a team. And so I think we have to think about that bigger picture. And the board's responsibility, unlike boards of selectmen and boards of finance, is to have, in my view, a double bottom line. Certainly to have the fiduciary interest of the taxpayer in operating the school system in the most efficient way possible, but also to consider what is the outcome for individual students and what is the best educational environment that we can provide. I have had lengthy conversations with Commissioner Curry at DAS, Deputy Commissioner Solzberg at OPM, and in all those conversations, what they said to me is that local officials need to conclude their process so that we can get a representation of what the region wants to do. We have talked about this. We have gone through it time and time again, and I encourage you all to move forward, not with a vote to spend more money, but with a vote to proceed, to figure out a plan and to work with the state to ensure that rural communities like ours have investments at the state level, something we haven't asked for since the construction of the school we're in today. I thank you again for your time, and I encourage you to respect the voters' opinion in supporting this project, who didn't look at projections, didn't look at numbers, but said, we want to save our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Jim McDonough, Washington. As some of you are probably aware, a couple weeks ago, there was a pretty big fire in town. The Wickham Rise, one of the biggest deals since the town hall blew up. It was a big deal, and folks were out there from about 8 at night until about 5 in the morning, and that was Washington Ambulance and Washington Fire. I didn't see a lot of the erstwhile opposition out there, but who I did see were people like Darrell Wright, new chief, Shepaug alumni. He has 2 students in Shepaug, one just graduated. Chris Campbell, 2 students in Shepaug, also a Shepaug alumni. Craig Wilbur, Ethan Labella. These are guys who went through Shepaug and are alumni, okay? People have said it before that if you shut down the school, okay, and I know we're not talking about that, but we are sort of talking about that because I think we all know that some of the folks in the opposition have put forth plans and letters saying, why don't we just shut down Shepaug and tuition out, okay? If that happens, probably attracting those families who will be on the fire department, who will be on the ambulance, might not happen, okay? And the amount of taxes that would have to be there to pay for those guys and women who gave up their Sunday, volunteered all day to train, and then got called out at 8 o'clock in the morning to fight a fire until 5 in the morning. I can't even begin to fathom how many man hours that is and how much it would cost the taxpayers to pay for that service. So I think looking at, that issue is something that we need to consider too, because obviously you're dealing with this small issue of the ag STEM and what we're going to do with it, but you're actually dealing with a larger issue of the school system as a whole. Like Tim Laughlin said, I was one of the taxpayers who voted for the ag STEM. I did the numbers, and if we move forward with about $2 million or however much it's going to take to get shovel ready or keep this process going, it's probably going to cost somebody $500, okay, just to keep that going. And I guess the message that I wanted to send to you is that as a taxpayer, I give you permission to spend my money. I know you're going to spend it wisely, and I know everybody who supported the Ag STEM program would say the same. So I guess I would just want you to keep moving forward. Again, I've said it before, listen to the people who voted for this process. Don't let their voices get drowned out by 20 or so very vocal voices, and just listen to the people who voted a long time ago to go forward with the Ag STEM program as a way to ensure the survival of the school system, but also the survival of the community. Because if young families don't keep moving in here, that fire department won't be staffed by second homeowners and retirees, and our tax dollars will be a lot higher to pay for those services. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Peter Mariano, Town of Roxbury. I'm on the Planning Commission there. Have another evening where I have to explain to my kids where I'm going. I have 3 presently. If I can talk my wife into it, we'll have a 4th. And I have to explain to my 7-year-old, well, what this is about is the future of our schools. And this concerned look comes across his face when we talk about what the options are if we don't proceed with this project. Everyone has said it time and time again, overwhelming vote yes. You have our support. Please proceed. And thank you for your time that you put into this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jason McKay from Washington. I do appreciate all the time that all of you have invested in this, because this has been a journey for many years. There is a cost of doing nothing. The cost of doing nothing is, like Jim just illustrated, you could lose valuable volunteers, you will lose families, we will slowly wither and die as a community. This is our opportunity to move forward. I implore all of you to have the courage to vote yes and move on this now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Ken Schultz from Washington. I'm not sure what else can be said. I think it's been said really well here tonight. I would just add that some things are not always about dollars and cents. It's not about mill rates. I think it has to be about our children and the future. It's not about myself or my parents, or it's about the future kids, not only here right now, but the ones that are at Washington Primary and Booth and Burnham, and the 50 some odd kids that are in reach, and the children waiting to come into our region. That's what this is all about, being able to have a sustainable school system, not for 5 years, not for 20 years, but for generations to come. This is the way it has to be done. We're finally here. Let's finally move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else? All right, that's it. Thank you all for coming, and for those of you who spoke. We appreciate it very much. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Is there anyone who wants to remove anything from the consent agenda? It has to do with approval of our special meeting January 3rd, 2017, our business meeting January 9, 2017, and our special meeting January 18, 2017, and then 2 separate field trips as set forth on the agenda. Is there anyone who wants to remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, then the consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Report of the chair. I know that we've got a lot to do tonight, but I just wanted to take a minute to, certain announcements have been made, and I think it's worth making them at a Board of Ed meeting. First of all, congratulations to our school counseling department, led by Todd Dyer. The school counseling program has met the criteria to become a registered ASCA model program by the American School Counselor Association. It's one of more than 650 schools that have received this national recognition since the program's inception in 2004. We also received an email, I think tonight, from Ms. Gallo about that the counseling office department has been recognized by RAMP, R-A-M-P, as a school of distinction. So I know that Todd and his team have done a lot of work, and congratulations to them. It's a wonderful achievement.
Samantha Steinitz is here. She's one of the counselors. Susan Steinitz.
Samantha Steinmetz is here. She's, I know, in the counseling department, so thank you, Samantha. And just briefly, a couple of other things. The Shepaug varsity cheerleading team won first place in their division at the Blue Devils Victory Crusader cheer competition at the West Haven High School. So congratulations to them for winning first place, the varsity cheerleading team. And I also wanted to point out that our Shepaug Valley Middle School swim team won numerous standout performances at the January 29 Connecticut Middle School Open Championships at Southern Connecticut State University. There's a lot of folks here that have been named, but Giacomo Flying Jack Colangelo was crowned state diving champion. Second year in a row that Shepaug boy has won the diving championship. 8th grader Katie Tola broke 2 Shepaug records, earned 2 gold medals with first place finishes in the 100 free and the 50 fly. The Shepaug girls swim team won 3rd place overall in the state championship. So for the size of our school, congratulations to them. Really wonderful. And I just wanted to point out, I read the papers every day. I don't get a chance to go to a lot of the games, but there's a lot of athletes competing for our school who are not winning championships and are not coming in first place, and quite frankly are having trouble winning any games. And we appreciate them. We're proud of them, and they're working hard. They're doing the best they can, and I just wanted to recognize them for the good work that they're putting in for the sake of the school. So thank you for that. All right, thank you. Superintendent's report. Dr. Costino?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Glad to see you. I just want to add my congratulations, especially to our counseling department. What an honor to be recognized by RAMP and then to be one of 6 schools named for school distinction out of 90 in the country. And there's only one other school in Connecticut that has a RAMP designation. So this is really very special, and it talks about all of the work that goes on in our, not only our guidance department, but our pupil personnel department, doing what's right for kids and helping them grow, not only academically, but socially and emotionally, and getting them ready for college and all of those things. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, a lot of work with families and parents, and I know that any parent who has an alum can tell you that a lot of the success of their children is because of the hard work that the counselors do with those kids and the families. So really, we are very impressed, and we will have them here one night. And I'm going to take them to lunch at some point when we have a free minute. But I'm really, really very proud of them. They worked very hard. I want to I've gotten this from 3 people, so I feel like I should read it or at least tell you about it. In the Post on Saturday, there was an article that President Trump wants to make America great again, and to do that, we need more high-tech kids and more kids in the STEM sector. And high schools must do a better job of preparing students for the STEM sector. So I believe we will be calling President Trump to see if he'll help us, maybe give us a donation
Come to a meeting.
Yeah, come to a meeting. We'll see. But yes, we could tweet them. That's true. So yeah, but that's good. I mean, you know, STEM is really up and coming, and agri-science STEM is, as most of you know, it's an opportunity for kids to have a passion that they can take through the rest of their life, whether it's a passion that starts with just a little seed that's planted somewhere, or they actually get into one of these careers. So I'm very excited about it. The other thing I want to share with you, which I always do a couple times a year, I think Debbie has the enrollment. Do you have copies? Did you give it to them? Okay, so just so you can see, we have enrollment right now. At Burnham, we have 44 kids. Next year, 2017-18, we should have hopefully 39 students in Burnham. Booth Free currently has 85 students, and next year, hopefully 71 students. And WPS is 112, and next year 102 students. So you do see also the kids that are tuitioned and in different schools. We have some staff students. And so I just wanted to give you this because we are going to start talking about budget, and I think it's important that we really have a good understanding of the enrollment in our schools. So it's just something to have before we start getting into budget. Thank you very much.
Is there anything else?
No, I think that's it. Oh, is there? Yes, I'm sorry. There is something else. We have an appointment. Lee Childs is a paraprofessional at Booth Free. And we have a leave of absence, Stephanie Brakovich, a science teacher at SVS. And she is going to have a baby, which is very nice news. Alicia Hines also is going to have a baby. She's a world language teacher at SVS. And we have one resignation, Caitlin Higa, para at Booth Free. Now I'm done.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for the superintendent? All right, thank you. I wonder if I could have a motion to amend the agenda to move item 9, action items, next, so that we can address this, and we have folks here, and we don't have to keep them here all night to hear what's going to go on. Is there such a motion? Is there? All right, it's been moved and seconded to move item 9, action item, to the next item on the agenda. So if this passes, we would go item 9, then 6, 7, 8, 10. Is there any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor of amending the agenda, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, the motion passes. All right, so item 9, 9.1, authorize the building committee to review and approve Castle Booze and Associates and O&G Industries costs to continue work to the bid phase per contract on the Ag, STEM, and Science Lab projects. All right. Was there going to be a presentation?
Well, we do have,
Or no?
I'm sorry. There is no presentation, but there is the information of moving forward. Is that in here, Bob? Should be in the packet. Okay. So in the packet, mine might be under, I hope so. If not, we have to get it here. Was it in the building committee? Debbie, do you know what I'm talking about? Show.
Looks similar to this.
Okay. I don't know if we have that.
Well, an issue,
Well, here we have the first one. Okay, I see O and G. I see O and G, which is this one, correct?
Summarized on one sheet of paper with both Castle Booze.
I don't know if I have that.
we don't have it.
Can we fast make copies of that, please? It's in the building committee packet? Okay, I think we were supposed to do it at the building committee, and Greg was going to present it.
Oh, wait, this one, but that's not what she's holding up.
Oh, here we are. This is it, right here.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
she held
so do
up
you all
the
have
email that
this?
said ONG.
I-
It
No.
was in
No?
It was emailed in our email packet.
Can you make copies fast? Just go right there, Sue can do it? Okay. I can talk about it. Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Kava, I don't think could make it, and he was going to do this, but that's okay. We're flexible, we go with the flow. Oh, and he's in the building? Okay, great. So anyway, yes. Okay. So basically, what I have in front of me, which was emailed to you, which you're going to get in a copy in a second, is Bob put together the cost for the architect, Castle Booz, and the construction manager, O&G. So O&G is easier, so I'm going to start there. O&G gets $7,400 a month. So what we have here is when you go February, from this point on, February, March, April, May, June, it's $7,400 a month. That gets us to June. That gets us to any state votes and what's going on between the Education Committee, appropriations, the governor, and the bonding commission. Castle Booz, and he is here tonight, and he can, both of them are here tonight, and are happy to explain if you'd like, has an estimate of $20,000 for February, $80,000 for March, $100,000 for April, $100,000 for May, and $195,000 for June. So that is the first portion of the middle of the page. Then you get to July. This is 2017 as it moves forward. So you will see exactly what the costs are moving forward. I think what we are asking for in this motion is to move forward with Castle Booz and O&G up until June, knowing that if we get stopped by the state at any point, we would ask them to stop. So that's the easy way of understanding.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Charlie, Mr. Booz, could you explain for the board briefly what do you envision doing, unless Greg, if you wanted to address this, between February and June? Just identify yourself, sir. Thank you.
Charles Booz, Castle Booz Architects.
Thank you.
The February billing would be remobilization to get our staff ready to get going with the next phase of the project, which is essentially refined schematics. And that happens in March for the $80,000. And then in April, May is design development, which is finalization of the project. All design decisions will be completed. No changes happen after the completion of design development. And in June is the first phase of construction documents, which is the phase that the project is actually bid from. And the construction documents phase actually would be complete in September.
All right, so the schedule then that's laid out, and this is your estimates, it's $495,000 February through June, is that right?
That's correct, whatever the arithmetic is. And of course, you can stop at any time with no.
If we receive, if the board believes that there's been a definite action by the state to cancel this project at any point, we can stop incurring your bill?
Yes.
A notification to you of that?
Yes.
All right.
We understand that.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Booz? Yep, Rebecca?
Chuck, considering kind of the shifting landscape that we've been dealing with DAS, do you feel that the estimate that you've provided adequately addresses any potential shifting that we may continue to need to do up until the final design in May?
Well, based on our last interaction with DAS, I think we've arrived at the point that they are happy with. So we wouldn't anticipate any further reductions from them. So I have no qualms at all about proceeding.
Anthony?
Hi, Chuck.
Anthony?
When was the last time you talked to DAS? about the design?
It would be, I have to ask Pat or Greg, I believe it was a December meeting that we were up there the last time en masse. Was it late November?
November 17th or somewhere around there, I can't remember, middle of November. So question to, certainly not to Chuck, but to anybody, I guess Pat. We know the testimony at the Education Subcommittee by DAS and their letter, et cetera. The way I understand it, and so if you can bring me up to speed if anything has changed, but the way I understand it, DAS is still evaluating the project because they've got concerns about the cost, et cetera, et cetera. So isn't the first step in this process is to finish the design or get DAS to approve a design? So where are we on that?
Okay, I do want to correct Mr. Booz. He's not wrong, but because we haven't been working with Castle Booz or O&G, we really haven't been communicating. DAS, I have an outstanding email going back and forth with Melody Curry, who is the commissioner, and she wants to meet with us, and she wants to know exactly who's coming to the meeting so that we can still right-size the project. I think they would be very pleased if we could reduce more of the square footage and the possible costs. Mrs. Gallo and I have some ideas about that, but unfortunately, we are not architects. So those are just ideas that are dancing in our heads, and we need permission to work with Castle Booz and O&G, schedule that meeting, and bring them up with us. I will tell you that after DAS did recommend to us to take us off, not recommend us to move forward, they have rescinded that, and they are willing to continue to still work with us. And so we're very happy about that. That was some good news that we heard through Art O'Neill. And so DAS is still working with us, and the project is still alive. But we're at a standstill right now until the board approves more funds and gives not only my office, but the building committee the ability to work with Castle Booz and O&G and spend some funds, our hands are tied.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the letter, that they recommended taking the projects or our project off the list. And then I think at the testimony, Commissioner Curry backed off that position, right? And she said that they're still evaluating. So so since then, they've changed that, or they're still evaluating this?
They are keeping us on the list, and they are evaluating all of the projects on the priority list, not just Shepaug schools.
Okay.
We are still working with them, and we still are confident that they're going to move forward with us.
So we still have work to do with Costas
Yes.
to get a final, to get him happy.
Yes,
Whatever that
exactly.
means. Whatever that means. So
Yes.
go back to then Rebecca's question to Charlie, is the work to get there, whatever there is that going to be covered by the schedule? Charlie?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Peter?
Well, I guess the question I have is you show $130,000 that has been, I guess, spent so far. Is that correct?
That's cumulative. That's
Yeah.
not Castle Booz. Castle Booz is over here.
Right, but I mean, that's the whole,
Yeah,
that's.
but that's not Charlie Booz.
I know, okay, but well, so let me rephrase my question. Let's presume the board tonight doesn't want to take the chance, in effect, that the project wouldn't be approved by the state. And the board decides that we're still interested in doing it, but without confirmation from the state, we could be spending, according to what I see, gross, including O&G, about $600,000, 500 and some odd thousand, because we already spent about 130,000. So I guess the issue for me would be, if members of the board decide that, do we want to gamble in the state in its current posture and risk having spent all this money not getting the project, which means it has to come from somewhere, whether the board borrows it or budgeted. How does that affect your end of the project?
It doesn't. We are obligated to pay our consultants and our people. If you want to move forward with these various stages, these are the numbers that we put forth.
Now, let's presume now we get to June and we've, so to speak, put off 6 months, 4 or 5 months of you working on the project. What does that do to the costs of going forward from your perspective? If we wait till June and then the state says, fine, you've got it, then we call you up and say, okay, Mr. Booth, continue.
It would work essentially like it did the last time when you told us to stop at the end of the previous schematic design. Any work that we would be doing between June and a restart of the project, we would expect to be paid for, but that could be limited because in the last phase, where the project changed substantially from the first phase, in that it was completely reduced and redesigned, we wouldn't expect that to happen the second time. So there could be to answer the question, a number between 0 and I can't really guess on the number because I don't know how many meetings or what you would want from us, but it would be a modest amount of money.
Okay. That was my point.
Michael?
This question.
We're not at discussion. Do we have questions for Mr. Booz? That's about what he's...
Well, just to confirm then, the estimate that we have in front of us then, Mr. Booth, as far as the February monthly fee of $20,000, that could go up if you're asked to go to a number of meetings at the state level?
No, sir.
Or no, that would
include? No, if you give us the okay to move forward, those meetings and any expenses that we have between us and our consultants would be included in these numbers. We're not billing extra for what we're contracted for.
Okay. Thank you. I have another question for Dr. Cosentino, but we can talk about it any time.
Are there any... Yes, Anthony.
So Chuck, in your opinion, if you're looking at the schedule, because I know we talked about this at the end of the year, and we were saying if we didn't get to certain places, we're really pressuring our ability to not to lose yet another construction year, right? So knowing that we still have to get an agreement with DAS on the final design, which I'm sure is somewhat gating, right? Your ability to move into your design development. I mean, so how much float do we have in the schedule while we talk to DAS before we're in jeopardy of losing another year? A month, 2 months?
Probably, let's split that in half, a month and a half. Well, let's say by April 1st, we would need to know.
So by April 1st, we need to have DAS nodding yes, so that you could move ahead. In
rough figures, yes, because we are always looking at the completion of the document so it can go out to bid in a timely fashion, so bids can be received and contracts can be let in time to complete the project for occupancy in September
2019. Anything else for Mr. Booz? Alan?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. So what you're saying is that in order to stick to the September, I know we were trying for the August before, and last year you'd said that in order to reach occupancy or scheduled occupancy for August 2019, we had to have a go-ahead decision February 1st. So from what you're saying, that's kind of not possible now because of these new changes. You wanted that extra month in there for leeway so that the school could definitely be ready in time for the opening of the school year. So but what you're saying now is that we really can't shoot for August. We need to shoot for September 1st, 2019.
What I'm saying is we would hope for substantial completion sometime in August. And if you'll notice on a schedule, the final payment is delayed until December of 19. So that there's it's not uncommon at all for projects to remain months in process, even though they're occupied. Substantial completion means legally beneficial occupancy so that you can use the building, and it would include, of course, the approval of the local authorities for the building to be used.
Okay. In that case, we've gone from thinking of 5 days ago as the drop dead date to now 2 months from now, April 1st is the drop dead date. Is it possible for you to stay on that schedule, knowing that you're going to have to take the next 2 months perhaps to adjust, to right-size the plan yet again? Do you think that, because you told us that we should really have a decision as to whether they're going to go forward or not and fund this February 1st. And that was thinking that we were really done with our right-sizing when you said that in late November. Now that we know there's more right-sizing to do, is it really possible to have our final go-ahead possibility from DAS be April 1st and still, do you have time to actually do the work that you plan to do between February 1st and April 1st and right-size in the next 2 months, I guess is what my question is.
It would be our goal to meet, not April 1st, but hopefully before the beginning of March, if at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, there are a lot of portions of this project that we've heard nothing about any changes on. The focus of late has been the greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Basically nothing else. And so we can be able to make a lot of progress on 95% of the documents. And if we have to make some changes in April, that would not be a problem.
So in other words, you can say you can kind of do things in parallel.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
For instance, it's a rather extensive site planning job, and the changes that they may be talking about will not affect the site very much at all. So that could go forward. And we have a component here for the science lab. We have heard nothing about the science labs being adjusted. That's a portion of the work that can move forward. Another portion would be the major renovations to the building. So if there's anything in jeopardy, it probably is some portions of the additions.
Okay.
And as we heard before, there was, for whatever reason, there was concern about the greenhouses. Am I correct, Doctor?
All right, anyone else? For Mr. Booz. All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right. The board is free to approach this as it will. It would be nice if we had a motion, then we could discuss the motion. People can say whatever they want as often as they want, although I'd like to keep it within reason. Perhaps we could start and go around the table, have everyone be heard once, and if they felt they had to chime in again, we could do that. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. Michelle.
I would like to propose that we authorize, or make the motion that we authorize the building committee to review and approve Castle Booth Associates and O&G Industries costs to continue work to the bid phase per contract on Ag STEM and Science Lab projects.
Second.
All right, Rebecca seconds. All right, there's a motion on the table. Peter.
What kind of number are you talking about?
The estimates that were just put in front of us.
Well, I see, but I want to hear it. The motion shouldn't the motion contain the number?
I suppose it could, but it
Because
says the contract.
But it isn't just Castle Booths we're talking about. If you go forward with Castle Booths, are we also talking about?
That's what she said.
We're talking about the whole.
This is what she said.
Right.
The motion was Castle Booze and O&G.
Keep the motions in your agenda.
I got it.
Okay.
Is there anything?
So
Go ahead, Peter, I'm sorry.
Well, my question is, we don't know what the state is thinking at this moment. And we've spent about $130,000 so far, correct? Is that correct? According to this chart, there's a cumulative
Hold on, Peter. I'm getting to it.
figure.
In the schematic design, we've spent about $130,000. In the pre-referendum design, that was all the work before the referendum, Pete. We spent $228,000. And in the legal and advertising for that referendum, we spent $19,230. So we are currently, with the 130, which was approved at the last meeting, have spent $377,630. Now, just for your information, so you have, if we move forward, we are only responsible for 20% of that, which is $75,526. The state is responsible for the other part if we get the Ag STEM and if it's approved.
If it's not approved, there's no way.
Right. But I don't want you to think it's 130,000 because it's not. It's $377,630.
That's been spent so far.
Yes.
But I guess I must be in the clouds here, but the chart you gave us shows a total figure of $662,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we've spent a certain portion of that money, correct?
No, that's new, this is new money, starting now.
Okay, so the figure you're asking us,
I'm sorry, that includes
so
the 130.
what is the figure you're asking us to approve if we approve to go to June?
It's about $530,000.
So that if the state does not approve what we're trying to do, all the money we've spent will have been spent in vain. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. And what is that total?
Except for the science labs.
Eh.
But if the state stops it, if we know for certain, and hopefully this won't happen if this decides to go forward, if we know for certain at any point before June that it is dead, then the expenses with the architects and O&G will
Well,
stop.
I'm going to presume we're going to go to June.
Okay, yes.
So therefore, what is the exact figure that we would have to absolve amongst ourselves, either through the budget or through a loan? I'm not sure. My other question is, how are we going to come up, where's that money going to come from? But am I correct in saying that if the state does not give us approval, the figure, give me the figure. What is the figure that we will have spent on the project up till June 30th?
While you're figuring this out, I have a point of information. Could I see what he's getting at? In the motion which Michelle made, which she might have to amend, she took it directly from the agenda item, which says continue work to the bid phase per contract. And if you look at the sheet we were given, bid phase is the final total line, which is the combined monthly of 1.3 million. So that's not really technically what we're authorizing now. We're actually authorizing a far lower number.
Right.
So I think to Peter's point, we need to, instead of saying bid phase in the motion, we should speak to that actual number, which, if I'm right, is 662, 400 minus 130 something?
Yeah, it's 532.
532 for, maybe you should change it to that, because I think that's the utmost that we're looking at.
So do I still have the floor, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe Bob can explain to us. We have a budget coming up. I presume it'll be in May, a vote by the public, correct? Is that? And we have to put a budget together. How does this all fit in to what we have to present to the public as a budget? Where is all the money coming from? Or are we going to put this in as a proposal in our operating budget as an increase in the operating budget? Or are you going to take a loan out? How is this all going to be accomplished?
At the current time, we're not anticipating putting this money into the budget. We've already spent from this year and previous years $377,630.
Right.
That was the pre-referendum money. It was the legal money and advertising.
Right.
And it's the $130,400 that we've authorized from this January 9th meeting that we just had. The rest of this going forward, these monthly from February through June, okay, that money is actually part of the referendum authorization through bonding that we can take a ban against. If we needed to, you have the authorization to borrow $500,000 without even going any further with it, okay, just by statute. But we have authorization to borrow up to $39 million.
So are you saying you want a bond, you're going to
If
present
we
to the
had to
board?
borrow it, we could either borrow it
Or bond it?
or bond it, or squeeze it out of the next two budget cycles. It's really up in the air at that point as to which direction finance wants to take it to. Whether you forego, for example, we've been putting 1% into the capital account at the end of each year. Looks like we'll be able to do that again in June. You may forego that and pay these bills. And that's $200,000+ against it.
Well, the point of my question basically is, we have to produce a budget come May, I believe, is when we produce our budget? No, I mean,
The
voters. The
superintendent's
voters
budget
gonna have
is
to vote.
March,
So my
and then you
concern
have
is,
until May to get your.
my concern is getting the budget passed and how this all fits in to getting the budget passed.
It's not the
I'm
intent
not-
at the moment to include this in the budget.
Whether you are for or against this proposal, to me, is not the issue. The issue is, one, getting the budget passed. Two, board members seem to support this concept. And you certainly, from my perspective, you certainly wouldn't want to be beholden to a particularly large figure if the state determines that it's not going ahead and voting for what we want to do. How do we get this into everybody's mind? Are you willing to blow $532,000? Because that's what you're talking about. That's exactly what you're talking about. And then you're going to have to pass a budget with the taxpayers knowing that you spent all this money. Now, Valerie Anderson said a couple of meetings ago, well, we're retiring a certain amount of debt. We can just create more debt and nobody will know the difference. Well, I certainly wouldn't approve of that concept. But I would like to hear, because the public is going to have to hear, how are you going to do all of this and guarantee that somehow, if it doesn't happen, we can absorb all of this money? I mean, because it's going to affect how people think about us.
Peter, I think, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what he just said, number one, was he didn't anticipate putting this money in the upcoming operating budget.
Yeah, right.
And number two, if we had that problem, that we spent all the money and we did not get a project, that we would have to decide at that time how we wanted to do it. He could do a ban, we could decide to pay it over time by not funding other things that we normally, so we don't, it doesn't necessarily have to be decided tonight. I'm sure that all board members, whatever their vote is tonight, they recognize that that is a risk. The folks who have spoken to us have appreciated that risk. Anything else, Peter?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Michael?
Again, this is a question to Dr. Cosentino, okay? So what are we planning on doing on the political front, as far as the state of Connecticut is concerned, to ensure that the state moves forward on their end in support of Ag STEM, assuming that we vote in that to move forward? I guess the scenario that we're all worried about would be the state deciding that they're no longer going to move forward. They're going to take us off the priority list, for example, or cancel. So I'm assuming from what I've read that there are a number of specific dates that you already have in mind, that you've targeted different committees that it's going to be before at the state level. And I'm also curious about what we can do to make sure that the legislators and officials have a true picture of the resolve of the community. I mean, we've been hearing from a number of people this evening that that's a concern out there already, that there are a number of people who are against Ag STEM, who had a very specific agenda to try to spin information to make the project look poor. And more recently, I think we've had some individuals step forward to try to correct that image and try to show that that there is community support still for Ag STEM. So I'm wondering what we can do, both not only at your office level, but even to pull in community members to make sure that those people know that there is support in the community and that we want to move forward.
Those are a lot of questions, but I'll start with Cabe Day on the Hill, which is March 8th. We have a group from the high school going. Unfortunately, they'll only let us take 4 kids and 3 staff members, but all the board members can go. So if you can go, it's not a full day. We get there around 9 a.m., and it's usually you can leave by 1. But it is a day where you can get into legislative offices, and Debbie in the next week will start making appointments for us. So any board members who can come, any parents who would like to come, we can try to get a group together for that. We are right now in a standstill because in order to really, and I said this before, but I'll say it again, it's worth repeating, in order to really work with the state at this point, I have got to bring the architects and the construction manager with me. So it is imperative that we are able to start to hire them again and move forward. So that's really very important. We have a small cadre of people, many of them are here tonight, who are supportive, actively supporting Ag STEM by writing letters, by calling the education committee members, by calling the governor's office, by calling DAS. And so now, you know, we're educators, most of us, and parents. And you've heard some people in the audience say, you know, we're not as politically savvy as some other people. And unfortunately, those are the people whose voices have been heard, and that's why both OPM and DAS really made those recommendations. And the legislature really said to both of them, why didn't you contact the superintendent's office? Why didn't you contact the selectman's office? And they had no answer for that. So now our voice is being heard. So right now we're concentrating on the education committee because that's the first bump it has to get through. So if you're interested, I have everybody's contact information. Call them, write letters. Snail mail's better than emails. You can leave a message, let them know you support Ag STEM. Once we get approval to move forward with DAS again, we will be back in business to be able to move our project forward. And we are really willing and able to right-size this project and reduce the footprint if we need to. The program has not changed. Every aspect of the program that we introduced a year and a half ago is the same. It's just being fiscally responsible and making sure that the state understands and supports us. And there is a lot of support for us. So I hope board members will get involved. If you want more information, just email me and I can send you lists of things. And if you have people out there who are watching or in the audience want to have more information and get involved, please let us know. But I think that we're not going to blow the money. I think that our kids and Region 12's community is worth the risk. That's how I look at it. This is worth the risk.
Michelle?
As for the motion, I actually would like to leave the entire schedule intact. I think what would be best added, and you can help me with the wording, is because I forgot this part wasn't included, but that the work would stop if the state at any time pulled the project. But what I don't want to approve part of it and then be back here again, possibly delaying the work that needs to be done in the middle of the summer when we don't meet very often, where we might not be able to get a quorum. I feel like the schedule, what the motion was to approve the schedule. Work will continue each month. The amount that is available for that month is itemized, and I would like the whole schedule to be available until we stop the project. If the state says no, we come together, we say we're done, and then we don't need the rest of the schedule. If we stop the project, exactly. But and that could be April, it could be October, it might not ever happen. So I didn't want to end it in June, because if there's critical work that needs to be done, I don't want to go through all of this again. So I would like to continue moving forward indefinitely unless the state pulls the project.
All right, anyone else? Peter?
what is the state's drop-dead date for approving us or not approving us? What is the date on which the vote takes place? I know it has to go to the governor, it has to go to the legislature, it has to go to the bonding commission. What is that date?
Yes, Greg?
There is a bill put forth every year.
Greg, Mike?
There is a bill put forth every year for the funding for this. That bill is typically voted in the closing days of the session. This last session, it was 2 days before it was the second to last day of the session. You don't know when.
When does the session end?
The session ends, if I'm not mistaken, this year. It ends in June. I don't remember the exact date, but that's when it is. It'll be on that date. It may be a few days before. It may be a day before. You don't know. There is no formal drop dead date, Peter, but it's by the end of the session they have to vote the bill, and so that's when it'll occur, probably in the early part of June. This is a budget year, so there's going to be a lot of things going around vis-a-vis the budget. So this is going to come in at the very last end of the session. They could also have an extension of the session for a certain period of time after that as well. So it'll be sometime then. Will be the idea of when it'll be.
Yes, Peter.
So, Michelle, what you're saying is you want to commit us to roughly $1 million and change to finish everything, correct?
In the event that it's approved in June, yes.
Right.
If it's not, then the expenses that are laid out starting in July would not be incurred.
Okay. Logical.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah, I the only issue that I have is I fully understand that we need to be behind this to do everything we can to make it happen. The only worry has always been that we will, as Peter's been saying, be wasting money if it doesn't happen. And my concern is that, it's good to have citizens and elected officials and board and everyone moving in on this. But my concern is that we have not managed to this point to convince the state as to our bona fides here, and that has caused letters to have been written, like Barnes's letter or Curry's letter. And I really would hereby really want to task the superintendent with being the leader of this project with the government and not relying on, letter writing from board members or meetings or townspeople. The fact that on that streaming session, the commissioner said she hadn't met you before, I thought was unfortunate. I really want you to personally safeguard this project, because there have been times when, see, my problem is that I understand and appreciate all sides here. I have been one to personally label some of the people from Bridgewater and Washington, it was mentioned tonight, nasty obstructionists. I've called them that myself. But I also want them to know, and I've told them also personally, that their input has been very valuable in this process. Because we have on one side people who doggedly want this to happen. And then we have another side, people who want to make sure that we're doing it properly. And I don't think we have taken advantage of the information that these obstructionists have provided us, because even if they're obstructionists, they were very skillful in their examination of data that we should have been as skillful in examining. And if this continues, if they still want to obstruct, I worry they will still be able to, unless we are as skillful with our handling of the data and this project as they have been. And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that if we're going to get behind this, that our good intentions will win out over other intentions, that we will master this situation. And that's what really worries me, is that these moving pieces have been slipping around for the last year. And I worry that we're going to okay this, and more pieces will slip around, and we'll end up wasting $500,000. Now, on the other side, I want to spend this money because I want this project to happen, and we have to do it for this project to happen. But I really want to make sure that there's no situation where we're going to go, oh, I didn't talk to that person because, or I didn't get around to this because I wasn't sure of what the response would be. I know I'm being rather cantankerous now, but it's been bothering me for a while. We can't avoid things that might be difficult, that might have an answer that we can't control. We have to fight for our answers. We have to fight for data that may be true regardless of whether it's pleasant. And then when the data might be unpleasant, deal with how we make this project work and satisfy everyone, even if the data is unpleasant. But we can't overlook anything anymore. And by we, I mean us, and especially the superintendent. We cannot avoid anything because others will not be avoiding that, and then we'll be faced with a government, state government, who says, well, what about this? And we'll be like, we don't want to do that again. We have to be on top of this. And the reason I'm acting this way is because I want to vote yes for this tonight, but I want to make sure that I'm not voting yes to waste $500,000. I want to make sure that I'm voting yes personally to have this project succeed and have the current and future children of this region have a great project. And it's a gamble, and the reason I'm acting this way is because I'm very tense about this gamble.
Michelle?
I appreciate your concern and frustration, Alan. I feel that all of us have been a little sort of blindsided by this whole process, but I also want to speak in support of our administration because I know Pat and Kim in particular have spent not only hours working on here over the holidays and over the weekends, but have spent hours working with DAS. Why the commissioner chooses not to attend those meetings, I cannot say. I don't know why. You know, she has probably many projects she's looking at, but I just want to remind everyone that this is uncharted territory. This has never happened. This is the first time in the history of Connecticut that they chose to not fully fund the recommended projects of the Education Committee. So this has never happened before. We are not lobbyists. They are educators. So we are all learning in this process, and it has been very frustrating. And if you watch that video, you will see that those legislators are appalled at what the Office of Policy Management and Department of Administrative Services did by writing those letters without consulting back with the administration or the board on that project. So it's completely unprecedented. That doesn't mean that what that means is that we have to work twice as hard because we just don't really know where the curveballs are going to come. The people on the commission, even as they introduced it, said, well, we've never been here before, we've never done it this way before, so we're all learning. So I think we need to recognize the work that's been done and just realize that we're going to have to work continually as hard as we have until June, because until then, really nobody knows what's going to happen. There are many committees, many levels of input between now and June, so we have to be vigilant on all parts.
Thank you. Greg?
I've heard a lot of people on this issue, not just the people who spoke at the meeting, but I've had the opportunity to speak to hundreds more people in recent days. And I can tell you that there is widespread and vast support for this project within the Region 12 community. And I can tell you that people here want to make sure that their schools are excellent schools. People want to make sure that these towns remain as the great places they are to live. And I think that the way we do that there's only really one way at this point to ensure that this school continues to be a great school, and it has been a great school, and that is to proceed forward with full-throated support of AgSTEM, and I think we must do that. And I think I don't have an issue with approving the entire full schedule, because if for whatever reason, in the extraordinarily unlikely event that the legislature didn't fund it, we have the ability to put the stop button. But if we don't go forward with this, there are two problems. Problem number one is we're not going to be ready in time to get the project done in a meaningful time. And problem number two is if we don't go forward tonight with full-throated support, we're sending a message to the state that we're not serious about this project. We don't want to move forward with it. And for that reason alone, we have got to have full-throated support of the entire program. We've got to put our money on the line, and we've got to make it clear to the leaders in this state that this is a school district. We are in the constraints that the state has put on us. We have the responsibility to the students that we have, and we need their support. And they need to go forward on this, because without this school succeeding, these communities will not succeed. And I think it's time that we move forward on this and we stop dithering and we just said, let's go forward, let's make this a reality, let's make it happen. And I support this fully, and I hope you'll all vote in favor of it.
Peter?
I want to make a comment about something that really has bothered me for a long time. Board members using the word obstructionist. How insulting. The obstructionists have been telling us the truth. The obstructionists have been giving us the facts. Not one person who stood up tonight gave us any facts for doing the project, because they don't have any. Board members have deceived the public from the very beginning by not giving the public the correct facts. Maybe we are the obstructionists. So I find it highly insulting, Michelle, that you and other board members use the word, if you did or didn't, but you're still inferring it, that they are obstructionists. They are telling you the truth. That's why the state has been listening to them, not because they spew out verbiage, but because there's substance to their position. We don't have that substance. That's why the state has said and did what it's doing. That's what's causing the problem. We are the obstructionists, and it's been that from the beginning. And it's about time the board recognizes that the right facts haven't been put on the table from the very moment we put it out for referendum.
Rebecca?
I think that it's true that nobody is the villain of their own story, and I agree with sentiments both from Peter and from Alan that the folks who have been opposed to this have voiced legitimate concerns, and I think that it has helped get us to the place where we are today, which is better than where we would have been. We also, as Michelle have said, been facing unprecedented issues at the state level. The state has put us in the unfortunate situation where they want us to commit dollars to a project that they aren't willing to support until they may or may not in the future. And that's a very difficult pill for any of us to swallow as taxpayers or as leaders in this board. But I think that we also need to recognize that when we talk about risk assessment, there is a risk to not doing it, as Greg touched on. And I think it's been made very clear from the state that they're expecting us to be shovel-ready. And so when we talk about potentially delaying in the hopes that we don't have to move forward until it's approved, I don't see any evidence that that would happen. I don't see that the state is going to approve us and then we can move forward and get shovel-ready. So if we want to talk about risk assessment, the risk of moving forward is that we have a chance of getting the funding. It's not guaranteed, but if we don't move forward, I think that we're just about guaranteeing that it's not going to happen.
All right. Anyone else? Anthony.
I mean, I've spent quite a number of hours talking to a number of our opponents looking at the data, the way they saw the data. I always personally believe that, it's worthwhile putting the effort in to understand somebody else's viewpoint because you might learn something. And lo and behold, I learned a few things. The analysis that was done by certain folks was, in my opinion, correct. And I've looked at the numbers since the very beginning of this program. The way I see the likelihood of this falling out, despite all of the best efforts and everything else, is the likelihood is that 102 enrollment number that was projected is probably where this is going to land. Again, my opinion, other board members can share it or not, but that's what the numbers tell me. So the concerns that were being raised and conveyed to the state or shared with the state were founded, in my opinion. So what does that mean? So I think this program is destined to cause us to have to subsidize it to the tune of probably $300,000–400,000 a year for the duration. And we've heard a lot of people say, but that's okay. That's fine. I'm saying this so that we as a board and a community go forward with our eyes wide open. So none of us have the ability to say, well, gee, I didn't know. Had I known. Because I think we've been there already on this program and we don't want to go back there. So understanding that, that's one aspect of it. I also think that there is a risk, and I understand that if we don't do this, I agree with you, Rebecca, that we're pretty much inviting us to be removed from the list. There's already a big target on the back of this program as it is. If you've read what's happening in Hartford, the bonding budget coming out of the governor's office is already, or the target budget coming out of the governor's office is versus the list of projects, including school construction projects among them, is $400 million over what the governor's office is putting forward as a budget in this year, and another $400,000 in the following fiscal year. So there's going to be a lot more discussion in Hartford and wrangling as this thing heads towards the finish line. And again, I think there's a very high likelihood that there's going to be a lot of pressure to reduce bonding costs. And these two programs maybe have been pushed in front of a train, being set up for the pawns in this game. But whatever motivated people to do what they did, it's done. But again, the likelihood is that there's going to be some cuts. So this money is definitely being put at risk. There is no doubt about that. It isn't just satisfying Costas with DAS and what he believes is the right cost per square footage. I don't think he really understands himself what the right cost per square footage is, because if he did, he would have laid out formulaically like he did when he answered the question asked by one of the committee members regarding classrooms, because that's settled science. When it comes to an ag program that's never been done in the last 20-something years, there's no handbook. So, which makes me nervous, because you don't know when you're done. We thought we were done once, and then there's a little bit of pressure that comes out of the governor's office, and the next thing you know, we're back in limbo again. So that makes me nervous. So there's a number of things that make me nervous about the program. We voted, and Greg, I'd like to get your concurrence on this again, but last board meeting or two, we voted to give the building committee chair the sole authority to spend this money we're contemplating on approving. And I'm assuming that's still the case, right? That everything is going to be controlled out of your office, Greg?
Well, we didn't give the building chair the authority. We gave the building committee the authority.
The motion is to authorize the building committee to review and approve.
The building committee?
Yes, a building committee, but the committee would then decide whether or not to spend it based on whether or not the work was done, the invoices were properly submitted, everything was properly certified. We would do that, based on that. Obviously, were the board to make a different decision because of some thing at the state. I mean, if the project wasn't going forward because we didn't have the money, then we, obviously we're going to give that considerable weight.
I'd hope. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, there's a motion on the table to authorize the building committee to review and approve Castle Booze Associates and O&G Industries costs, continue work to the bid phase per contract on the Ag STEM and Science Lab projects. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Any opposed, raise your hand. Any abstain, raise your hand. What is the vote, Madam Secretary?
902.
9-2.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can we just correct that vote? It's 9 in favor, none against, 2 abstaining. It should be 902.
All right, thank you.
For the record.
All right, thank you. All right, then we'll go back to item 6 on the agenda, committee reports. Mr. Cava, 6.1, is there any report from the building committee?
Building committee has not yet met. We had to cancel our meeting because of... Oh, I'm sorry. Did you...
We met.
I meant facilities. I was thinking facilities. Building committee did meet.
I'm
and
sorry,
I'd like that report to be made by...
Rebecca.
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 The building committee met tonight for the first time since November, and at the request of the board, reviewed the invoices for O&G and Castle Booze. Had a good discussion about it. Just like with the board, there were concerns about the cart horse problem that we experienced, and there was an expressed hope that, assuming that this board moves forward with the project, that the appropriate authority is given so that the building committee can then run this project in a more appropriate fashion.
All right. Any questions for Rebecca? All right, thank you.
Could I just add something? I very much appreciate Rebecca on fairly short notice taking over that meeting and running it for me in my absence. I wasn't able to be there. Thank you so much.
All right. 6.2, education curriculum. Michelle or Michael, any report?
No report. I think the next meeting, is Karen still presenting the technology plan?
All right. Item 3, Ed Advance. I must confess that I have received materials from Ed Advance just informing things that they're doing for the region, and I forgot to bring it with me tonight. I'm sorry. Is there anyone else who has? Valerie has been involved in that.
We couldn't attend our last meeting, and I reported on the meeting before. So.
All right. 6.4, facilities. Greg, anything?
This is what I meant to say a minute ago, is that the facilities committee did not meet because of the weather, and we will hopefully be meeting before the next board meeting.
All right. Thank you. 6.5, finance. Mr. Geeson, anything to report, or anyone from the finance committee?
We just met and went, we just met last week and went through the audit report, which is on the agenda for this evening. We met with the auditors, it was Michelle and Valerie.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Item 6.6, long-range planning. Alan, anything?
We haven't met since I last reported. We meet every 2 months, and we're going to meet again in March.
All right, thank you. 6.7, negotiations. Greg?
Yes, as you know, we completed the negotiations with the teachers union. The contract is here tonight, which we'll go into an executive session, and we are going to shortly start negotiations with the nurses union.
All right, the teachers contract has been signed by the teachers union. It's here for us to approve, and then if we approve it, I'll sign it as well. All right, policies and bylaws. Michelle, anything?
We did not meet at our last scheduled meeting, but we scheduled a special meeting, I think, for next Friday. Is that right?
The committee?
The committee, so that we can catch up. 'Cause we have a long agenda.
Thursday.
And we still have that outstanding one on the Family Leave Act?
We have several outstanding.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
We have a long list.
All right, item 7, any old business? All right, item 8, New business. 8.1, consider and approve date change of board business meeting and budget hearing from April 3rd, 2017 to March 27, 2017, or move budget hearing to April 6, 2017. Dr. Costino?
Yes, Mr. Geeson goes on vacation every year and follows girls' basketball to wherever they are playing. And unfortunately, it's on April 3rd. And last year, he wasn't here for the budget hearing, and the board asked that he be here. So my first request would be to move the whole meeting, the April 3rd meeting, to March 27th. But if that doesn't work, we can keep just the regular board meeting on April 3rd and just have the budget hearing on April 6th. But my first, we want it to be March 27th.
Does anybody have any preference?
April 6th.
April 6th.
April 6th is a Thursday. March 27th is a Monday. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Greg.
I'll move that we change the date of the board business meeting and budget hearing from April 3rd to March 27, 2017.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, thank you. 8.2, consider request for Gun Memorial Library to use Washington Primary School for the 2017 Washington, Connecticut Antiques and Design Show, waiving policy prohibiting alcoholic beverages for 2 evenings, Friday, October 6 and Saturday, October 7, 2017. Greg.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we grant the request of Gun Memorial Library to use Washington Primary School for the 2017 Washington, Connecticut Antiques and Design Show, and that we waive our policy prohibiting the service of alcoholic beverages for 2 evenings, provided the usual stipulations that there are no alcoholic beverages that are on the premises or served during time when students are in the building, and that all of the usual insurance coverages and other requirements for the use of school facilities be met.
Is there a second? Second by Rebecca. Thank you. Just to say that I know that the Gun Library appreciates this very much, and they have a very successful event, and they're quite enamored of our building, even more so than they were of the town hall. So, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, that passes. Thank you. Finally, 8.3, acceptance of FY 2016 Region 12 Annual Audit Report as recommended by the Finance Committee. I believe we all have a copy of the audit report. Mr. Geeson, did you want to be heard? Or Rebecca? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Michelle?
Go ahead, Michelle. You were there.
So, well, I guess, should I just recommend we approve it first?
If you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'd like to move that we approve the audit as presented.
The 2016 audit?
Yes.
And seconded by Jen? All right.
I guess well, if you have questions, hopefully.
I know that Valerie usually says, and I think I've noted from this, that it's a clean report.
Yes.
It's a clean audit.
It is. It is. It's a clean audit. We met, we went through this for close to 2 hours. Lot of, it's amazing. I commented at the meeting too. I think I've been doing this 11 years on the Finance Committee, and I learn something new every time. So there are, I think some of the things that were sort of highlighted this year were just the state monies that are disappearing slowly. And that's going to be a conversation for that's going to be continuing to happen. So it's not just the ECS grants, but the excess cost grant is smaller, transportation grant. Just they're kind of nippling around the edges there, the state. So that was one thing that was sort of new this year. Another thing which is sort of interesting on page 36, it's something that's required to be reported now, was not before. It's a liability that is not ours, so I find it kind of strange accounting rules. However, just after the meeting, a day or two later, I heard, so let me explain. There's, if you look in the middle of the page, there's $24 million obligation there. That is the state's. It is not ours. It is for the retirement accounts of the certified teachers. The teachers are in a state certified account. And the portion of that account that belongs to Region 12 at this point in time is $24 million. And there is talk at the state of shifting some of that back to the localities. I think the governor, 1/3, was proposing that, which
Not the 24, though.
not of the 24, right. This is our past obligation. That would be obligations moving forward. But it is something that, right, so this is not, no, yeah, the 24 is what all of our current retirees, so that's a past obligation. But it is just sort of interesting that has even coming into the conversation, because for years that has not. I think also, was it maybe on page 30, we talked some about the retirement portion that we are required to fund for our non-certified staff. And we are not quite fully funded. We were really close, and then we changed some of the assumptions. We updated the.
What page are you looking at, Michelle? I'm sorry.
Well, possibly page 30.
Okay.
That's part of it. It shows up several places in the audit. Some of my notes were there.
Page 30.
And page 32, the pension. So if you look at page 32, we're funded currently at 87.39%, which is really good. But last year it was higher.
It was over 100%.
It was over 100%. And the reason that has changed is not because we're contributing less, but because we updated the age tables. People are living longer, and so we needed to change the assumptions. We also reduced the rate of return that we're calculating in, so that we are a little more conservative on that rate of return. I think we reduced it by, was it 0.5 or 0.25?
0.25.
0.25%. So that's why at this point in time it's 87% funded, which is still a very high rate, and I expect that will be higher than that in another year or two. But because of the assumption changes, that's where that is. Those were sort of outline. Everything else is business as usual. Everything looked really good and was clean.
Share what we're sending back to the towns?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sure.
Hey,
I think we went over that number, but it didn't
Sure, it's on-
change. Yeah, so now it's official.
Page 42.
I think I also have.
42?
Yep. And what we're, the ending fund balance for the year is $167,959 being returned. It's made up of two pieces, additional revenue that we received that we have to return to them anyway. That's about $159,000 of it. And the unexpended appropriation is $9,262, and it's less than 0.5%. I mean, so we
Very good.
virtually spent nearly everything that we had available to us.
So
And we put money away.
mechanically, how this works, if this budget, this audit is approved tonight, you actually write these checks tomorrow or soon thereafter?
Soon thereafter, the calculation of it, we've done already, and the distribution is based on the percentage for each town. So in this particular case, rounded, Bridgewater will get $34,600, Roxbury's $56,400, and Washington is $76,900. It's rounded numbers.
Do you have any additional comments on the?
Well, in regards to that, I think we may have mentioned this, but in case we didn't, we were talking about the education cost sharing grants and the cuts, and there's been a lot of talk in the news about those cuts. And what that is it's a grant from the state for the purpose of education, but it goes to the towns, not to the school board. And the amount of money that we are returning to each of the towns is larger than what was cut from the ECS grant. So the towns should be happy to hear that and appreciate the fact that we managed the budget well enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the ECS funding is kind of a complicated formula. There's a 19-part formula that's used, I believe, to determine that. And everything was moving along swimmingly till a few years ago the state was not able to fund its full obligation. So that was reduced from 100% to 77%. So you would think that every town got 23% less, but unfortunately politics intervened, and some towns received 400% of their allocation, and some got as little as 30%. So be thankful we were not one of the towns like Woodbury that only got 38% of its allocation, and over several years it cost them millions of dollars in lost revenue to the town as a result of that. So it can go badly. In our district, Roxbury received 77%, and Washington and Bridgewater each received in the 90s. So we actually ended up with more money than we would have normally gotten had the allocation been done completely correctly. So we should be pleased and that we survived, whereas some towns unfortunately didn't quite do so well. So it's kind of a mess, and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else?
Just one, the women in that office work very, very hard, and that's why you got a clean audit. I got 3 staff members down there that
In the
do
front
it.
office?
That's correct. They work tremendously hard at it every day.
All right, thank you.
Could I offer just one friendly amendment, though, Michelle? When you said to approve the audit, I think we can only accept it. I don't think we can really approve it.
Sorry.
So if you'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Absolutely.
Thank
sure.
you.
Well, it's, yeah, item 8.3, that's the motion. Acceptance of the Region, 2016
Sorry.
Region 12 Annual Audit Report. That's the motion. Is there anything else? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right,
Thank you.
that's passes unanimously. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Costino.
Yes, I just want to add Bob to that list of people to thank. Bob does an excellent job in the business office with the ladies, and I am very impressed. When I first got here at the end of the year, one of Michelle's biggest complaints was that we were giving back to the towns $150,000, $200,000 at the end of the year that wasn't spent from our operating budget, and this year we're at $9,200. We really work very hard to make sure that we spend appropriately, that we provide the schools and the staff with what they need. And Bob is really proactive in making sure that he gets the best rates for insurance and oil and electricity and everything else. So, Bob, I just do want to say thank you because I know you work very hard at it.
Yes, ditto. Good job.
All right, thank you all. All right, item 10.1, is there a motion to go into executive session for discussion of negotiation strategies and considerations of potential settlement for the 2017-2020 Shepaug Valley Education Association contract?
So moved.
Is there a, Greg's moved. Is there a Michael seconds. All those in favor of going into executive session say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we're in executive session at 8:38.